Brenard Ginger Sculptor is everything I'd hoped he'd be. Each creature you control that's a food or a golem gets 2/2 and trample. That alone is incredible. And then whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you can exile it if you want. If you do, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 1/1 food golem in addition to its other types. And then you can do the food thing and sacrifice it and gain life. Anyway, I'm going to lean just super hard into that golem theme. So let's start off with introducing some golems and the things that create golems. We've got Blade Splicer, Master Splicer, and Sensor Splicer. Each of them enters and creates a 3/3 golem. And then they each give your golems something. So Blade Splicer gives First Strike, Master Splicer gives 1/1, and Sensor Splicer gives Vigilance. Next we have a few more: Darksteel Splicer, Maul Splicer, and Wing Splicer. Darksteel is really powerful and enters the battlefield. You create X 3/3 golems, where X is the number of opponents you have, and then gives you your golems indestructible. Maul Splicer enters with 2 3/3 golems, and then gives your golems trample. And Wing Splicer enters with the 1 golem, and then gives all your golems flying. Vital Splicer enters, makes a 3/3 golem, of course, and then you can pay 1 and regenerate a golem you control, so that can't be overlooked. Ictech Salvage Splicer also enters with a 3/3, and whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on him, and you put a +1/+1 counter on each golem you control. So this guy's gonna make things big, and your golems just re-enter if you just exile them from the graveyard as copies of themselves. Next we have all the cookies. We got Ginger Brute, Sir Ginger the Meal Ender, and Tough Cookie. They all do various things, but as long as you have them, they can sacrifice to gain 3 life. Ginger Brute can be basically unblockable. Sir Ginger gets bigger when artifacts basically die, and it has trample, hexproof, and haste as long as the opponent controls a planeswalker. And then again, you can gain life equal to his power, so that's even cooler than the normal food stuff. And then Tough Cookie, it creates a food when it enters, and then he can make that extra food become a 4/4 artifact till end of turn. He's making more Tough Cookies. Phyrexian Triniform and Triplicate Titan. When both of these die, you make more golems. Phyrexian Triniform creates 3 3/3 golems, and it has Encore 12, and then you can just make even more. And then Triplicate Titan, when it dies, it splits up its abilities to Flying, Vigilance, and Trample, and it splits between 3 different golems. Maelstrom Colossus. This is just a 7/7, but it has Cascade, so hopefully we get something good off the top of our deck. Basalt Golem, this is an old one. It cannot be blocked by artifact creatures, and when it's blocked by any creature, you kill that creature at the end of combat, and then that creature's controller creates a 0/2 wall instead. It's really weird, but I kind of like it. And then it's just like replaces their really good thing with just a little 0/2. Then it's just fun. I don't know. I kind of like it. And lastly, in this section, we've got Glass Dust Hulk. It's got cycling, of course, but then whenever another artifact comes into play under your control, it gets 1/1 and is unblockable until the end of turn. So that's pretty cool. A lot of the deck is artifacts. This is just going to be unblockable a bunch. Next section, here we go. We got some support golems. First off is Geode Golem. 5/3 trample. Whenever it does combat damage to a player, you can cast your commander from the command zone without paying its mana cost. Well, except for like commander tax, but still, hey, that's pretty awesome. And of course, Solemn Simulacrum enters, search for basic, and then it dies, you draw a card, and it's a golem. Hey guys, come on. You probably didn't even know Solemn Simulacrum was a golem because you just overlook it. Huh? I'm looking at you. Bottle Golems. I thought this was a reprint of Bottle Gnomes because the words are so similar, but it's not. It's a golem, and it's got trample, and it's a 3/3, and when it dies, you gain life equal to its power. And our cool Cookie Master will be giving it 2/2, so we'll be gaining a lot of life. And then when it dies and then comes back, we'll gain more life when it dies again. Anyway, it's pretty cool. Golden Guardian, of course, it's a 4/4 with Defender, and then it can fight a creature you control. When Guardian dies, you return to the battlefield transformed under your control. So you fight something, you kill it, it'll come back immediately, and hopefully Golden Guardian dies, but it will transform if you don't exile. And then you can tap it to add 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool, or pay 4 and tap it to create a 4/4 golem. Karn Legacy Reforged. I'm glad this has come out because it's a golem, and its power and toughness is equal to the greatest mana value among artifacts you control. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you add a colorless for each artifact you control, but it can't be used to cast non-artifact spells, but then you don't lose that mana. It's just a perpetual mana dump. And the last support golem is Mycosynth Golem. This one's a little kind of expensive card because it's so good. It costs 11 for a 4/5, but it has affinity for artifacts, so it costs 1 less for each artifact you control, and then gives all your other artifact creatures affinity for artifacts. So, I don't know. I don't know, it's a little bit broken. All right, now let's find some synergies that'll work with the deck well. Adrix and Nev, twin casters. If you like tokens, this is gonna be good, because when our things die, they come back as token copies of themselves. And then if you create one or more tokens, you create twice that many instead with Adrix and Nev, so you can't go wrong here. Panharmonicon, when things enter the battlefield, that causes a triggered ability to trigger. That ability triggers an additional time. You'll find that this deck has a lot of enter the battlefield effects, because they enter, they do something, and then they die, and then they come back, and then they do it again. So Panharmonicon lets us do it again and again and again. Peregrine Took. Whenever one or more tokens enters under our control, we create that many tokens plus an additional food token. So we can make even more things, and we can do things with the food tokens that I'll get to later. But then you can also sacrifice 3 foods to draw a card. Tireless Provisioner, landfall, we create a food or a treasure. So that's pretty nice. And then we've got Gala Greeters. Probably didn't think of this one, did ya? Haha. Whenever another creature enters under our control, choose one that hasn't been chosen. We can put a +1/+1 counter on it, create a tapped treasure, or gain 2 life. All right, but how are we gonna win with this deck? Well, first off, we've got Masterful Replication. You can create 2 3/3 golems with it, which is pretty nice, I guess, if you need the golems, because this is a golem deck. But also you can choose a target artifact you control, and then you can make all your other artifacts become a copy of it until your end of turn. So you remember something like our Glass Dust Hulk or something. You can make all your little food tokens become copies of that, and then they basically all become unblockable if something enters. You can win that way, or you can do something like a Maelstrom Colossus, which is just a big 7/7, or you could do a Tough Cookie, because that's just fun, or you could do Ginger Brute, make them all unblockable. I don't know. There's lots of ways to win with this. It's just kind of a fun card to play. The next, which I think is better, is March of Progress. It's got Overload, so you can choose target or each artifact you control, and then for each creature chosen this way, you create a token that's a copy of it. So you can copy all of your things that I just mentioned before, and it's just extra copies of that. And then guess what? If you want to, then you can cast the Masterful Replication and then make even more of them. It's pretty cool. Lastly, to win, we need Rise and Shine. Make our books have shanks. That's what we're going to be doing, except instead of this book, it's going to be some food tokens. You basically turn a non-creature artifact into a 4/4, and then you can overload it and then make all your non-creature artifacts into 4/4s. So yeah, you can use your treasures and your foods this way, and you can just swing and attack with those, and it's pretty awesome. Now I got some extra things that help out with the deck. Rootborn Defenses populates, and then creatures you control are indestructible this turn. If you don't know what populate is, it explains right here. To populate, put a token on the battlefield that's a copy of a creature token you control. Bronze Guardian gives all our artifacts Ward 2, and then it itself has double strike and Ward 2, and then its power is equal to the number of artifacts we control. Combine Chrysalis, this one's amazing because it gives all our creature tokens flying, and then we can sacrifice any token that we control to create a 4/4 beast. Provisions Merchant, look at how happy this guy is. When it enters, you create a food, and then whenever it attacks, you can sacrifice any food, which is, of course, any of our creatures if they die. And if you do, attacking creatures get +1/+1 and trample until end of turn. So you can do this, make things a little bit bigger, and then eat that mushroom burger or whatever the frick that is. And now we've got an Evolutionary Leap. Wow, this one's so cool. You can sacrifice a creature, which kind of fuels the commander a little bit because we recycle the creature, get more into the battlefield effects, and then reveal cards from the top, reveal a creature, put that card into your hand, and rest on the bottom. So this kind of just perpetuates or helps our deck move forward. Yeah, I've got some card draw. So these things, when they enter, they will draw us a card, and then they will do it again when they die, basically. So we got Llanowar Visionary, Cloud Conceer, and Sky Scanner. ETB, draw a card, and Llanowar Visionary also counts as a mana dork. Muldrifter and Thought Monitor, they enter to draw us 2 cards. Muldrifter, evoke it, kill it. Yeah, so you draw the 2 cards, and then it immediately comes back as itself and draws another 2 cards. And Thought Monitor also has affinity for artifacts, so it's going to be easy to cast. Circuit Mender and Filigree Familiar are basically literally the exact same, except Circuit Mender has a little more toughness. When it enters, you gain 2, and then when it dies, you draw a card. Lochiel Clockwork Scholar prevents all combat damage that will be dealt to attacking artifact creatures we control. Incredible. Whenever one of our artifacts enters under our control, we draw a card. Triggers only once each turn. Padim, Console of Innovation, gives our artifacts hexproof, and then at the beginning of our upkeep, if we control the artifact with the highest mana value or tied for the highest, we draw a card. And lastly, for card draw, we have Carnage Altar. Again, we can pay 3, sacrifice a creature, draw a card. This helps because, we're just recycling creatures, bringing them back as 1/1 food golems, and then we draw cards, and then, etc. and so forth. For our removal section, we're going to have a bunch more enter the battlefield effects. So we've got Lauren of the Third Path as well as Foundation Breaker. ETB, destroy an artifact or enchantment. Lauren helps other people draw cards as well as us, so we can, we might destroy something they control, but we can also bargain with them later. And then Foundation Breaker, again, is another evoke ability. Acidic Slime, ETB, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. Spider Food and Sundering Growth, destroys an artifact or enchantment. Spider Food can also destroy a creature with flying, and then it creates a food token. And Sundering Growth populates. Meteor Golem, of course, it's a golem, and then it enters, you destroy an online permanent. Dispatch is really good. It exiles a creature if you control 3 or more artifacts, and of course we will. Austere Command is our last destruction card. It's a nice board wipe for anything we really need. Last section, we've got some ramp. If you're looking for more ramp, you can check out this playlist here. We've got Soul Ring, Then we have Farhaven Elf, Wood Elves, Ondu Giant, and Topiary Stomper. When they enter, you search for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped. And that's basically all I'm going to cover with these. Quandrix Cultivator, this does the same bout. It enters, you search for a basic forest or a basic island, put on the battlefield, not tapped. Spring Bloom Druid enters, you sacrifice a land, and if you do, you can search for 2 basics on the battlefield tapped. Cradle Clear Cutter, this is another golem. We can prototype it out, but it taps to add an amount of green equal to its power. Jahira, Friend of the Forest, gives all our tokens the ability to become Land of War elves. And then we've got Ashnod's Altar. We can sacrifice a creature to add 2 colorless to our mana pool. Anyway, I think this is kind of a fun concept of a deck. I really liked that Brenard came out. So I already had a Golem deck, and it's just had a couple random commanders, but now it's got a really good commander. Anyway, well, let me know what you guys thought, and put what other commanders you'd like to see in the description below, and I'll try to make a video of them. Make sure you join the Patreon and get some extra bonuses in the form of printable tokens. That's pretty cool. And then make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss your weekly dose of magic.